Okay, hi everybody. My name is Eric with Cineblab,
I'm Chris with Cineblab.
and we are here at the Raleigh Marbles IMAX movie theater, and we just got out of watching
Morbius.
Morbius.
I said Mobius.
We just got out of watching
Yeah.
Morbius.
I like-
Doctor Morbius.
Quick note on the theater.
Mhm.
I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I thought the scene was kind of cool.
Well, so the thing about like IMAX is it's a really good way to see a movie because a typical, negative on a movie is 35 millimeter, like something like that size or something
Yeah.
like that. And the IMAX negative is 70 millimeters, so twice the size. So it's like that big. And so it's like the second biggest, film stock in the world that you can use. And so it's like twice the quality of a normal theater to see it in IMAX. So it's very nice to actually be able to go to an IMAX theater. I haven't been to one in a long time, and it was fun.
There's something I wanted to ask, which I didn't while we're in there. Does the quality increase like the range of colors that it can display?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When as soon as it opened, when the planes were flying, that's after you told me that because of quality, I thought that I was like,
the opening scene of the movie was actually gorgeous, which is they're in the jungle of like Costa Rica, and they're it's a drone shot or a helicopter shot, and they're flying through the clouds, and the clouds are obscuring the ground below and everything. And as they go through, it was a beautiful opening shot, And I'll start with a positive, right? Almost everything about this movie was absolutely like beautiful. It's really
shot well.
Yeah, it was shot well. Good blocking, right? Like good effects. Like there's some cool lens flares and everything like that. Like it was a beautiful experience to see the movie. So like visually, I think it was one of the better ones. And maybe I just think that because we saw it at IMAX, you know what I mean? But I was really I was really impressed with quite a lot of the shots, especially early in the movie. And so, this movie is kind of, I think of it in like two ways. There's like the beginning, which there's not a lot of special effects at all. And it's more character.
But it's very, lots of color at the beginning.
Yes.
The shots, they have like multiple locations where there's lots of foliage, color in the background, very bright. And after transformation part, right? Like, the movie certainly takes
darker.
a dip, it
gets darker, and then the special effects kind of take over.
Yeah.
And so there really are like two
not a fan
phases.
Of the special effects. Not a fan.
We'll get into that a little bit. So I mean, for the uninitiated, right? Like let's talk about the story for just a second, and then hop into sort of the review part of everything, right? And so
he our titular character. He has a blood disease, right?
Yep.
He says how he explains it. Because I don't think they ever specify what disease he has out loud.
They don't specify, but they say that like his blood can't coagulate or and so like I think it's like similar to hemophilia. Like his blood, if he bleeds, he'll just bleed forever, I think.
Yeah.
Is that it? Because he talks about a coagulant, and coagulants in blood are the things that make your blood sticky. Mm-hmm. And so he says that like his body can't make coagulants, so his blood's just runny. And so he's forced to get a blood transfusion 3 times a day, which is basically drain out the old blood and get replaced with new donor blood. And so he constantly needs donor blood.
That sounds super intense, especially for a child. And like that whole place where they were, like that was like multiple kids that all had it, right?
Well, okay, so that's one of the first things that happens in the movie is he gets taken to like a hospital.
Yeah. He's already in the hospital. The kid that comes in is
that's
Milo.
Right. That's right. Okay. So Dr. Michael Morbius as a child is in a hospital where he can get treated for his blood disorder.
Yeah.
And then a new kid shows up.
Is that the hospital, right? It's in Holland, right? Because
I don't know.
They sent him to study in New York, and then they flash forward the studying part, and he's like a prize-winning doctor who invented fake blood that has saved millions and millions of lives. So like he's good. Like he did good. Even if he didn't find the cure for what they had, he already like did way more than like he completely.
So the movie starts right with this scene in Costa Rica, and it starts with him as an adult, with the what's those leg things called that you move around on? Crutches.
Yeah.
And so he like cuts his hand, and bats come and whatever, and he captures the bats.
Yeah, apparently that thing was just a trap for bats.
It was,
right?
yeah. The vampire bats are attracted to blood, so he cuts his hand to get the bats to fly into a net. essentially. So he's there strictly to capture vampire
A
bats.
fancy net though. It looks super cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, it looked really cool. And I don't know how he ended up catching like the over like 300 bats
God,
that he took.
Every time you looked at him, you had more bats from Costa Rica.
It's like, I don't know. That trap definitely didn't look that big.
I'm assuming that the bats, multiplied after they were captured. That's what I'm going with. So
I kept thinking whenever they showed the bats in his lab, that I kept thinking that place has to be filled with guano.
Oh God!
Like,
the bat shit.
So much guano,
like the bat shit. Yeah,
because where he had them, the cage, not cage, the containment cell that they had the bats wasn't wide. It was like it was big, but it was big in a.
It was more tall,
vertical kind of way.
Yeah, it was more than wide. It was more tall than wide, right?
So that had to be like a pool of guano. There's no way that was like completely overpowered.
I'm glad I wasn't cleaning the bat after his hundreds of thousands of bats.
And I don't know why every time this shows the bat cell, that was my thought. It's like that place has to be filled with shit.
That's just one of the numerous things that makes you wonder in this movie, like what's going on with this fucking guy. So like he captures these bats, and then they go back in time to the orphanage scene or the hospital scene when he's a child getting treated. And so,
did you like that?
The flashback scene?
Yeah. So they start present time, then they go back to his background, then they come back to present time.
Yep. So did I like the pacing of that, basically?
Like the way that's presented to the audience.
I did not like
Me
that.
neither.
No, I did not like that at all.
Neither.
I did not like the beginning of the movie. I thought that the beginning of the movie with him capturing the bats was fucking stupid. It wasn't good. Like
was pretty. It looked good.
Like I don't necessarily care where the fuck he got his bats from. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think it was important to the story at all. Certainly not something I wanted to.
Not relevant at all.
I mean, so like I know that there's this whole thing of like the bat concept, right? And like that's like the first way to introduce a lot of bats. And I think that maybe like some people are squeamish about bats, and so like a certain percentage of the audience in the theater would be like, "Oh my God, I hate bats."
Yeah,
but I didn't care at all.
Yeah.
And the other thing, so talking about this flashback scene, this is where Dr. Michael Morbius meets his best friend, like his lifelong like best friend, like the deepest emotional brotherhood connection that could possibly happen.
Milo number 4, right?
Yeah. So his real name
That's
is
how
Lucian.
deep that connection is. Milo number 4.
We'll get into that in a second, but
he doesn't even remember the first Milo.
So they meet each other. They both have this rare blood disorder, right? Yeah. And the first thing that Dr. Michael Morbius says to him, he tells him his name. My name's Lucian. And he goes, "What's up? I'm going to call you Milo." And he's like, "Milo?" He's like,
kind of like a dick.
"The kid that was in your bed before you was Milo."
Yeah.
You're the new Milo.
You know your identity as a person?
Yeah, you don't have an identity anymore. Dr. Michael Morbius, even as a child, a little bit of a dick. A little bit of a dick. Yeah. Couldn't you remember his best friend's name?
Definitely smart, though. Like, he seemed like he was educated.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention about the flashback scene is that's when they introduce the character of Nicholas. And Nicholas is a caretaker that works at the hospital. He's the older guy.
Oh, okay.
So he's an older guy. He's like in his 30s or 40s, and he's like looking after the kids and stuff. And it turns out that the character of Nicholas, who like works in this hospital, eventually gets hired by the character of Lucian, or also who we're going to call Milo.
Milo.
I'm just going to call him Milo.
Milo was like a
name. But he
like
hires
a kingpin, right?
He was rich. He's a rich kid. He's supposed to be like a billionaire.
Yeah,
like
he hired
outrageously rich
and stuff. Like a bunch of goons working.
But he hired the character of Nicholas away from the hospital to like be his personal caretaker as an adult, because he was like very difficult to get around. He had the blood thing, and so he basically was his like live-in nurse. Like he's Alfred, like Batman's Alfred. That's Milo's Alfred. Basically, is this character of Nicholas. So that's the other important thing that gets introduced in this scene. But okay, so. One of the things I really wanted to talk about that I didn't like about this movie is like the relationships of Dr. Michael Morbius. And so the central relationship in this movie is supposed to be the relationship between Dr. Michael Morbius and Milo, the rich kid Milo, basically. And so we get like 15 seconds of them interacting with each other as children.
True.
Where he doesn't know what his name is. And then 2 seconds later, like, "Hey, nice to meet you, buddy. By the way, I'm leaving, and I'll see you in the summer." And then the scene like ends basically, and also Dr. Michael Morbius gets picked on by some bullies.
Yeah, no, not Michael, Milo.
Milo got picked on by
my
bullies?
bullies, yeah.
Okay, I'm confused.
Yeah, the doctor was the one with like kind of like shoulder length hair, more or less. Yeah,
you're right.
Milo had the short hair.
So anyway, so they meet for like 2 seconds as children in this hospital.
True.
And it's the deepest, most emotional relationship of all time. We're supposed to care so fucking much about Dr. Michael Morbius and Milo. It's like, oh my God, they're such great friends. There will never be a relationship stronger than this in the history of cinema.
And every time they talk, they kind of bring it up.
Like, yeah, like,
oh, we've been together our whole lives.
And they have this saying, which is it's the few against the many. We're the Spartans.
Yeah.
So their bond is like established by this motto, this creed, and their creed is we are the Spartans. We are the few against the many. So like the whole world is against us. Yeah. And if the two of us team up together, we can conquer anything. Like that's
like they have a solidarity because they have this. They're impacted by the same disease, but their relationship is always told. It's like never shown.
Yes. Yeah, you're 1,000% correct.
That's like. It's like that's a mistake that's been happening since the beginning of stories, probably.
No, I think that's
and it's like
a mistake that's actually
why does it keep happening
with the comic
why do we
book
keep
movies?
Doing this now? Like this shouldn't be happening anymore. Don't ever tell, always show.
So I think that this is a problem with comic book movies and like the MCU and the DCU and the Sony MU, the Sony movie universe or whatever. There's so many characters in these movies now, like the Eternals and the Avengers Endgame, that it's impossible to give them like the appropriate screen time to have those relations, to like have you care about these people. You know, when you have 35 people on the screen or whatever, and it's like a 1.5 hour movie or something like that, that's like 1 minute of screen time. You know what I mean? So like that's like freaking, you're stuck on an elevator with somebody. Like you're gonna have a fucking amazing relationship with this guy you had an elevator ride with for 60 seconds, in a building or something. And so that's what you're getting at with this screen time.
Yeah, I'm sure the cop is probably someone too, because they wouldn't give him that arm thing and like a scar on his neck for no reason.
He's the FBI agent, so
like
so you're jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead.
I'm saying that he's like a character too that you're gonna have to like, oh wow, this character like. That I don't care. Like I'm not invested. Every time he showed up, he had like a one-liner. In fact, no, he had almost no liners because it was the other cop that had like the one-liners.
So there are these central characters, right? Which is Dr. Michael Morbius and Milo, which is the central character. There's Milo and Morbius and the connection with Nicholas, the caretaker. And then there's this other girl whose name is Martine, which is like his.
Dude, I forgot all these names.
Doctor. So. All right, so let me get to
the romantic interest, which is not really portrayed as a romantic interest.
I didn't buy it
until after he got like his superpowers, and it's like, look, I have abs now. You love me, right?
He suddenly had the confidence.
I guess
after 7 or 8 years of working together, they finally had the confidence to just go for it.
Yeah, I love you now. Yeah.
So okay. So I'm gonna like diagnose it right now. Like this is an autopsy, basically. Like the cliff notes. The big problem with this movie is that these relationships between Martine and Morbius and Milo are supposed to be extremely deep and like extremely developed over time, but they don't show it on the screen. And so we as an audience do not care at all about what happens to Martine, about what happens to Milo or whatever. I didn't give a shit because they didn't have the proper time to like do it. So, this is probably a 2-hour movie, I think, like that, or an hour, or it's a little longer than 90 minutes, but it's a little shorter than your typical 3-hour epic. But like, it's a pretty long movie. And most of the time, instead of like developing these relationships and showing these characters on screen to like let you know them, they end up spending the screen time on like his experiences and like his tactile experiences, like his hearing, his feeling as being a vampire. And so they show all this time of like him flying and like him having his super hearing and having his super like smell to smell the blood and like him transforming into the tooth-fanged monster. They spend so much time like showing and telling the audience what it's like to be a vampire at the cost of the relationships on the screen and the story itself. And quite frankly, I don't give a shit what it's like to be a bat. You know what I mean? I kind of want to know like what's going on with the relationships here. And so I wanted that screen time to devote to the relationships. They gave it to like him fucking sniffing blood.
True, that's weird. Something that I also found that bothered me is that they go through the effort to establish that this is something that he accomplished through like genetic manipulation, right? but then he has straight out superpowers, dude.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man also happened because of genetic manipulation, but Spider-Man doesn't do anything like outside of like what a person. He can fly, dude. He can fly. He shouldn't be able to fly.
He got the web.
Yeah, but Morbius shouldn't be able to fly. Why does he fly?
Because bats fly. Don't think about it.
Nothing happened. He didn't change. Like, yes, he should fly if he had wings. He doesn't have wings.
Physically,
it makes flies.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, it's like what?
Because like okay, so bats and like birds have hollow bones, right? And they're like they're super light. He's like a 180-pound man.
Yeah,
He's
like
not
he
flying.
put on like a ton of muscle after he transformed. He should be able to fly even less than before.
right. You're 100% right.
Yeah, like
I mean,
it's like he shouldn't fly. Like which I don't know. It's like I get it. It's like a superpower, whatever. But like it bothered me so much that they went like, "Oh, this is like science, all right," and then immediately turn around and we're like, "Nope."
Yeah.
He's also weak too. He's probably weak to garlic too, and like steaks or whatever.
They did actually get into a little bit of the superstitious vampire stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
So they talked about like in order to kill a vampire, you have to put the sharpened end of a cross through the heart. And the FBI agent had holy water during the interrogation.
And when she handed him the coffee, she put it in sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
there were like these like little references to like traditional vampires or whatever, but like the movie didn't know like whether Dr. Morbius was like a science vampire, you know what I mean? Like this like genetically engineered vampire or like a traditional like spooky Nosferatu Dracula style vampire. Yeah. And one of the things that I think really where they fucked up is at the end his girlfriend dies, and like I mentioned we don't give a fuck about Martine. Quite frankly,
so, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like
she just showed up for 2-3 minutes on screen, and all of a sudden we love Martine or whatever. So she dies, and he bites her neck to drink some of her blood. But instead of draining all of the blood out of her body, which is what he usually does when he kills people or like drinks their blood, he only takes like just a little sippy sip, and so that gives her like some vampire bacteria in her neck that brings her back to life and turns her into a vampire.
When they kissed right before she passed away, she bit his lip and like took like a nibble of his blood.
So that's the other thing was it the nibble that she took of the blood that she swallowed, or was it him biting her neck that turned into a vampire? I have no clue.
What if she even like took the serum when we're washing? Because when she like, you know that scene where they're in the lab working and she like cuts her finger?
Yeah.
She shows a lot of interest in it. And she decides to like drink, like have her own blood, I guess.
Okay.
Though I've bled before, and I don't want to sound like I'm weird or something, but that has been like a natural reaction to like maybe like lick it off or something. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like it was just like a natural reaction, I guess.
I mean, there's like I don't understand the rules of the vampires in this movie, right? I know that like you take this shot in your spinal cord to become a vampire, and like supposedly, you know, that's how Milo became a vampire. He stole the vial. So okay,
which they didn't show
3 vials. They did not show him.
They didn't show him grabbing it, and then when they panned to the lab, they didn't show that the vial was missing, did they?
They might have. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah. I remember looking, and I didn't see like the vials there.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I didn't see them, because he took them, or like I don't know.
I think that there's 3 vials.
Yeah, there
obviously
were 3.
The first vial went to Morbius. The second vial he stole, and there was this third vial, right? And I think what happened with the third vial is at the end, Dr. Morbius injected it into Milo's like heart, effectively killing him. Yeah. And so are the rules like you take the vial once, you become a vampire? You take the vial twice, you become dead?
No, that
was that a serum? Was that an antidote?
Yeah. He made that in the lab.
Oh,
well, yeah, I remember he was.
So what happened to the third serum then? Like the one that turns people into vampires? Is Martine supposed to be the one?
That's for the next movie.
That's where they imply. Oh, yeah,
that's for the next movie. Because you know, every movie we have to have our superhero fight someone with the same set of powers as them. Oh
That's
my god,
the
law.
Okay,
That's
so
the law.
let's talk about this for a second. This annoys me in so many movies, and not even just superhero movies, but especially superhero movies, like the most recent Venom, Let There Be Carnage movie. The enemy that the superhero has to fight, is a version of the thing itself that has the same powers. And so it's the exact same thing here. You know, he's a vampire, and then all of a sudden his best friend becomes a vampire, and he's a little bit stronger of a vampire because he kicks his butt. You know what I mean?
It's because he's drinking real blood.
Oh, right.
While Morbius is running around with the fake one, and starving himself, while the other one's basically just gorging himself.
Yeah. Since
he got the powers.
So I didn't understand necessarily like the logic of the vampire and how you become a vampire and all these powers that the vampires have or whatever. But the other thing that I thought was a little bit weird also was like this. Another huge point of this movie was this conflict that Dr. Morbius has inside about like, do I want to be a good guy or do I want to be a bad guy? Because in the beginning, when he first becomes a vampire on this ship in international waters with mercenaries on the ship, he kills 8 people and drains their blood completely. He's like a cold-blooded murderer, a John Wayne Gacy murderer, you know?
He did kill everybody on the ship, which...
Except Martin. Yeah.
I don't know, the visuals made it seem like there was a whole lot of people on the ship, and it was only 8 people on the ship.
Yeah, plus them, so 10 people total.
I thought there were like a lot of them, and it's like just 8.
I'm not sure who exactly was like steering that boat.
And when they said... he said like he called right before he jumped off. He was like, "Oh, this ship needs help."
He did a mayday to the Coast Guard so that Martine would get rescued.
And they said the boat ended in like the coast of Rhode Island or something.
Long Island on New York,
And so that's weird. But I think he says, "Oh yeah," when they say, "Oh, 8 people showed up dead," and I was like, 8 people? He killed like 20 people. It's like he just killed 8 people.
It was like it was a little hard to tell.
But I was right. So he said that when he turned, because Milo said the same thing too, that you lose control when you turn. So he wasn't really all there, except he was, because he didn't kill the lady.
That is such a fucking good point, man.
Except he was there because he didn't kill her.
That's the best point I've ever heard.
Everybody else, and then he looked at her and decided to go outside and kill other people.
You're 1,000% correct. It's bullshit to claim that he didn't have the control.
Exactly.
Because he did. He chose to kill those 8 people on the boat. And he chose not to kill Martine. And that is a conflict, right? Because he's supposed to be the hero, but he's not. Yeah. And he also kills a bunch of other people too.
Yeah, he's like an anti-hero. But ultimately, dude, I didn't care about anyone in this movie, including our lead.
To be honest with you, I didn't care that Dr. Michael Morbius was better. I didn't care that he had the blood disease. I didn't care that he was gonna die or whatever like that because the vampire transformation didn't work.
He was a good person. Like I feel like he had a noble goal.
Yeah.
And he did invent the fake blood, which is like a revolutionary invention.
They make this point to clarify how pure of heart he is. There's a scene near the beginning of the movie where he gets awarded a Nobel Prize for his invention of fake blood, and he rejects the Nobel Prize because he's not in it for the fame. He shows up, by the way, in Sweden to the event, sits down on stage.
I think
but he just can't take the fucking
originally,
statue.
right?
I don't even know, man. I don't remember.
Or is it that they just give the Nobel Prize in Sweden?
Like, in Sweden, the Nobel laureate committee is in Sweden, So he travels all the way to Sweden to get this award, and then doesn't take it when he's there, and snubs the king of Sweden. It's like, is that a good guy? Like, he's so cool, man. He's so cool. He can't even take awards and shit like that. You know?
That's true.
So I thought that was like a little bit weird, honestly. And then, so this whole like conflict between like, am I going to be a good guy? Am I going to be a bad guy? Yeah. I didn't give a shit.
But the conflict was also spurred on by Milo. Because Milo took the serum.
Mm-hmm.
But because he was testing it. He was testing like the limits of his abilities, if it was sustainable. And I'm pretty sure he was trying to... Initially, the boat thing kind of affected him. And he was like, oh, this can happen again. Because he even said that, like, he just said this out loud. It's like, it's so obvious. Like, I felt like the movie kind of insulted my intelligence. It treated me like if I was dumb. And it's like, dude, I get all of this is so obvious. You're not doing anything that's hard to read or hard to follow or anything. Everything here is so simple and plain and, to be quite frank, mundane.
I agree with what you said, and I think that you phrased that so well. Another thing that I did, like, they do insult your intelligence in this movie, I think. And one of the things that I didn't like is, when Dr. Morbius first kind of becomes a vampire and jumps off that boat, he goes back to the lab, right? And there's this scene where he literally is, like, supposed to be talking into his journal or talking into, like, a recorder, like a tape recorder to, like, document his science findings, but it ends up just being like a fucking diatribe for the audience to explain, what powers he has. He's like, I've noticed that my strength is 20 times that of a normal man. I can do so many things. Also, the bats love me. They accept me as their brother. And also, I'm super fast and I've got really great vision. And I've got really great hearing, and I have a form of echolocation. He literally explains to the audience, like, with words, here's, like, the 25 things that I could do. And, like, they don't show it. Like, they shouldn't have just showed you. Like, like what you were saying earlier, like, show, don't tell. They told us, like, what his powers were. And I was like, oh, my God, dude.
So, yeah, he's documenting all his findings, and he decides, like, I can't go around murdering people. The fake blood is unsustainable.
Yeah,
I need to find a cure. But then that's when he's still doing deeper testing. That's when Milo shows up and steals the serum.
He decides to, like, deprive himself of blood to see how long he'll last before he gets, like, super crazy sick. And then Milo shows up and he's like, "What's up, buddy? Are you okay?" And he's like, "I want some blood." And he gives it to him. Yeah. And he realizes that he's, like, healthier now. And so Milo, like, to his credit, instantly realizes, like, what happened. Like, he's turned into a vampire and he accepts it. And he's like, "I want to be a vampire too." And he's like, "No, man, you don't want any of this shit."
It's like, he didn't even, like, want that. He just didn't want to die or keep living in pain because, like, from the disease, it looks like this very painful to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's just like, "Nah, man, you don't want no part of this, Ricky Bobby."
Like, no, that was Dewey Cox. You don't want none of this shit, Dewey.
Oh, that's true. I mixed it.
What are you guys doing here? This shit's Viagra. It makes your dick hard. He's like, "I think I want some." I should stop talking. We're gonna edit that part out of the podcast.
That's hilarious.
You don't want none of this shit, Dewey. And then Milo's like, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." So everyone in this universe,
give you superpowers. You grow abs. You don't want no part of this.
Yeah. The other thing, I just thought of something that I didn't like about this movie. Everyone in this universe accepts, like, the existence of vampires. Like, oh yeah. I mean, obviously, the FBI is all like, "Freeze, motherfucker! We know that you vamped everybody," and they're trying to arrest him. And then Milo accepts it.
Yeah, he does say. Yeah. When he breaks that guy's hand, he goes like, "Oh, I'm Venom." He says it.
God.
So it's like,
you take some Tylenol, you'll be okay in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I think
the world already had a taste that there's
these weren't the first vampires that ever came out. In our world, if somebody became a vampire, we'd be like, nah. Okay, this guy's got mental illness. He's just likes drinking blood. He's a fucking freak. He's on kratom. He's smoking that PCP. You know what I mean? That's why he's biting people's necks. Like, but in this world, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's a vampire."
Yeah.
And then, that's why I brought holy water into this interrogation. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't like that very much. That, like, just we accept that there's vampires. Like, I think that this should have been a little pushback. You know what I mean? Instead of like the news being like, "The vampire killers are on the loose," instead it would be like, "Dr. Michael Morbius is confused and thinks he's a vampire." Like, I don't know. I feel like there should have been some more pushback from the general public against, like, him just being a vampire or whatever. But let's see. We got a little over a minute here, so I thought it was a beautiful movie, right? I really loved the visuals of it. And I think that Jared Leto is actually a great actor. Dallas Buyers Club, Requiem for a Dream. He's a Grammy, Oscar award-winning actor. The problem was not Jared Leto with this movie. He did a good job with what he was given. The problem was the writing, quite frankly.
The problem is Sony.
So I mean, that's my take on things, is that, whoever the writers were, honestly, it wasn't good. I think they, like, tried to do too much, and the post-credit scenes of Michael Keaton were cool or whatever. I'm going to give this, like, a 5.5 out of 10. That's my score. So what's your final thought?
I think kids would like it. It's like a mindless movie. So I think it'd be a case for kids, but if it's you ask me, I would like want to show good art to my kids, not this. So yeah, it's out of 10.
Yeah, out of 10.
3.
3 out of 10.
I mean, it's a fun watch, and then you have fun pointing out all the garbage